Hello everyone, I hope you all doing great today. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We will be talking about the nature of educational assessment. I am with Miss Claire Ann Marie Alagaw and Miss J. Ann Abastas. The purpose of classroom teaching is to influence pupil behavior in the desired direction. The desired direction is guided by the educational objectives formulated by the school and the teacher. Of course, when we say classroom teaching, it is not all about teaching how the students learn, how they think critically, or give them different techniques and strategies in the assessment, but also the behavior that they have learned and basically influenced by the teachers. And desired direction is guided by the educational objectives because it sets a shared expectations between students and instructors. It helps students learn more effectively and provide clear direction for educators when making instruction and assessment decisions. In the nature of educational assessment, the teacher must be first conscious of the goals and aims of education and formulate instructional objectives for various lessons and units in the systemized and rearranged syllables in a subject of study. As a teacher or a future educator, everything we do must have a specific goal or objectives to achieve in order for us to know that the lessons and teaching strategies are effective. For example, in making a lesson plan, the most important part of it is the objectives that you need to realize. You will be guided and straight to the main point of your lesson. Second, in a position to construct effective learning experiences on the basis of student learning and the modes of effective communication channels. And the teacher must be able to determine the extent to which these objectives are being achieved. So, of course, you need also to determine the area covered by those objectives that you have made. There are three major elements in the education process. First, we have the objectives. In education process, again, there should be an aim or goals because it guides you to the right direction in teaching and learning. Second, we have learning experiences. Learning experiences engage learning process whereby students learn by doing and by reflecting on the experience. Like for example, internship. During internships, we get to learn what it's like to do a certain job and whether we enjoy it. And another example, we have the apprenticeship. During apprenticeship, we learn on the job, which helps to develop practical rather than theoretical skills. And then learner appraisal. Learning appraisal is the concept of appraisal for learning. It emphasizes that appraisal is an opportunity for teachers to learn about their effectiveness. Teaching and learning helps teachers understand their own practice, and as a result, it improves the quality of student learning. Why decide for assessment? Assessment decisions could substantially improve students' performance. It guides the teachers in enhancing the teaching learning process, and it assists policymakers in improving the educational system. All stakeholders, educators, parents, students, and administrators need evidence that students are actually learning. A balanced system that includes formative and summative assessments provides the best evidence for what students are learning. Many formats of assessment questions from multiple choice to constructed response to performance-based may be used. A system of well-constructed formative and summative assessments allows students to demonstrate their abilities and knowledge and then reflects how close they are to meeting educational goals and standards. Evidence from assessments can be directly beneficial to students. When assessment activities are aligned with instructional activities and content standards, teachers can provide students with information about which concepts and skills they need to learn. And then teachers can use assessment results to help students understand why they already know and why they still need to work on. Poor assessment procedures could adversely affect the students, teachers, and administrators. In the 1990s, It was proven that students identified with high potential cognitive level through traditional pencil paper tests have not been successful in coping with the demands of modern world. Therefore, paper pencil testing is inadequate to measure other important skills needed for people to function effectively in today's world. There are several good reasons to consider offering a variety of assessment methods beyond the typical quiz, test, exam. Students need to understand concepts deeply as opposed to memorize information and reproduce it on an exam, so they can handle advanced coursework and later work effectively in their chosen field. As educators, we need to have a thorough grasp of the why, what, and how of assessing students' learning. The underlying philosophy is that of assessment for learning rather than assessment of learning.
Good day, everyone. I am Claire Ann Marie Alagao, and now let's talk about the difference between assessment for learning, assessment of learning, and the assessment as learning. So first, let's talk about the assessment for learning. Assessment for learning is the students are assessed in order to enhance the teaching, learning process guided by the principle that education is a lifelong activity and does not cease after one's graduation from school. Other thing is it is an approach to teaching and learning which creates a feedback which is then improve the students' performance. Students are more involved in this type of assessment and they are more likely to become an active learners. Now, in assessment of learning, it is the building block by which we introduce the idea of assessment for learning in Philippine schools. So, in this, it refers to a strategies designed to confirm what the learners know and demonstrate they have met the curriculum outcomes or the goals. And the purpose of it is to measure, certify, and report the level of the students' learning. And also, it is a way to see what the students can do sa ilang learnings. And sa assessment as learning, it can be used in conjunction to support the student achievement. It is used for the purposes of greater learning achievement and it is also a process of developing and supporting students' active participation, and as well as used for the purposes of providing evidence of achievement for reporting. In assessment as learning, the role of the teacher here is they will serve as a guide to their students. So when we say evidence of achievement for reporting, an example of this that the teacher can give is the report card or the grade given by the teachers to the students. And now let's talk about kung unsa ang assessment. It is the process of obtaining information that is used for making decisions about students, curricula and programs, and educational policy. It includes the full range of procedures used to gain information about student learning. These procedures may be formal, it can be in pencil and paper tests, or informal through observations. Certain concepts and terms are associated with assessment. These are tests, measurement, and evaluation. In other terms, assessment is the process of assessing the learner's progress and development. And also, nasa PPT, this could be a method or tools that educators use to evaluate, measure, and document the academic readiness, learning progress, skill acquisition, or educational needs of the students. Also, an assessment is used to identify the individual weaknesses and strengths of the students. And now it's time for us to discuss about kung unsa ang test. Test is a task or series of tasks which are used to measure specific traits or attributes in people. In educational settings, Tests include paper and pencil instruments. The one example of this is a summative test or a periodical test nga buhaton sa mga estudyante given by the teacher. It contains questions that students and pupils respond to. So, ansira na sa mga students. A test can be a multiple choice, an identification, and enumeration, and og uban pa. The responses provided to the questions help the test giver to obtain an estimate of the specific trait being measured. It answers the question, how well does the individual perform? So, through giving of test or series of tasks, diri ma-measure sa teacher on how well the students learn from the discussion that he or she gave to the students. Also, by giving of series of tasks or tests to the students, the teacher will also know kung kinsa ang mga dili pa maayo ana topic, and kung kinsa pa ang need of more assessment with regards to the given discussion. And now there are also two interpretations of scores from tests. The first one is norm-referenced interpretation. These describe test scores or performance in terms of person's position in a reference group that has been administered the assessment. The reference group is also known as the norm group. For example, a student's performance may place him or her as the 15 out of 45, or a student doing better than 90% of the class. In the norm-referenced interpretation, it compares a student's score to a range of previously observed performances, usually the performance of other students. How much a student knows is determined by his or her relative ranking within the norm group or the group reference. In short, sa norm reference interpretation, gi-compare ang student's score from other students' performance. On the other hand, the second interpretation of score is the criterion reference interpretation. So this describes test scores or performance in terms of the kind of tasks a person with a given score can do. The performance can be compared to a pre-established standard or criterion. Like, for example, a student may be able to solve 8 problems out of 10 concerning fractions. A level of performance can be established at 6. So, sa criterion reference interpretation, it compares a student's knowledge and skills against a predetermined standard cut score or criterion. So, moto siya pod ang naa sa ang PowerPoint nga akong gibasa ganiya. So in this, the performance of other students does not affect a student's score. Unlike sa norm reference nga it compares the performance of other students. Now we are done with my discussion. I hope you have learned something from it. Thank you for listening and God bless everyone. And now let's proceed to the next reporter, Ms. Jayan Abastas.
So good morning everyone, I'm Jayan and I am tasked to discuss the next topic. So bear with me guys as I have my audience sa mga manok, pasensya eh. So now let's proceed to the assessment methods. What are the methods in assessing or in an assessment? So first method, it's reliability. So this is the extent to which a questionnaire, test, observation, or any measurement procedure produces the same result over a period of time. So the keyword here is produces the same results over a period of time. So despite giving the same questionnaire or test or observation, the result is still the same despite it is being tested 3 times baron, but then the result of it is the same lang gihapon. That's what you call reliability. Then the second one is the standardization. So standardization, it establishes a set precedence, therefore enhancing an assignment test or project's reliability. So standardization, or from the word standard, it has a standard or a great standard wherein the it prior or the what do you call that? The inferiority of that kind of test or an enhancing an assignment. So dapat na standard gani nga giset for it to be achievable or for it to be reliable, or to the extent nga na siya reliability, that is standardization. So the next assessment methods is validity. So dapat valid siya. So it indicates whether an assessment tool is measuring what it intends to measure. So dapat kung na kay ihatag nga assessment tool, dapat measurable siya. And when we say measurable, dapat na-intend nato nga ma-measure gid nato dapat ang students kanang unsa atong gusto ipa-measure sa usa ka estudyante. So dapat valid siya, or ganing other words sa validity. Sakto or angkop sa gusto nating mangyari, or angkop sa gusto nating makita na ginawa ng isang estudyante. So validity estimates indicate whether the latent variable shared by items in a test is in fact the target variable of the test developer. Basta ang keyword there is measuring what it intends to measure. So gi-measure nato kung unsa atong gusto nga i-measure o gusto nato nga makita nga ma-measure. And then lastly, the last assessment methods that we have in our PowerPoint presentation is practicality. So we always tend to say practical. Dapat practical na ta nowadays. Dapat applicable na siya. Dili lang kay kanang kay gusto na to ato ng buhaton. So dapat practicality wise man lang gingon. So it refers to the action of the assessment method and its relevance to the overall learning goals in the course. It also addresses whether or not the workload for the instructor is reasonable. So assessment method and its relevance to the overall learning goals in the course. So this is the action wherein ang assessment methods nga atong gigamit is relevance or kanang naaayon or naaangkop sa tamang panahon and gani in overall learning goals of the course or in the course. So that's practicality. Dapat naangkop o ganang ma-meet pud nato. So relevant siya nowadays. So that's practicality. So we have discussed the assessment of methods. So firstly, the kunsa man to, reliability, standardization, validity, and practicality. So why is it important to assess? Nga kinahanglan mo nato i-check or i-assess nato kung unsa ang nakatunan sa atong estudyante in the future. So first, to find out what the students know. So knowledge. So ma-check nato or mahibaw-an nato kung unsa nay nakatunan or nahibaw-an sa estudyante. Ikaduha, to find out what the students can do, unsa iyang pwede mabuhat og how well they can do it or unsaon niya pagbuhat, which is, so in short, skills, unsay kaya niyang buhaton og how he or she perform it. Third, to find out how students go about the task of doing their work or the process of the students, nagiunsa na nila pagbuhat, unsa ilang mga gipangbuhat, unsa ilang mga naagian. So makahibaw ta na. Third, to find out how students feel about their work. So, motivation, effort. So, para mahibaw-an nato kung unsay gibati sa atong estudyante pohon while gipabuhat nato sila ani. Like, for example, karon mangutan nato maestra, unsay gibati ninyo while gipabuhat mong daghang report, diba? So, we have a lot of things nga atong masulti about that matter. So, fourth, to know if students can apply what they have learned in authentic situations. So, this is the application na. So, may bawaan na to if unsaon pag-apply sa estudyante ang ilahang nakatunan in a real life or ang tinud-anay nga kanang sitwasyon na yun ba, dili lang kay in the four corners of the room, but also they were able to apply it in the real world. So, Yes, these are the four lang important, or why is it important to assess. So now let's proceed to the what are the functions of assessment. Unsa may mga gamitan ni nila? Unsa ilang buhat? So first is diagnostic. So this is determining the gaps in learning or learning processes, hopefully to be able to bridge this gap. So na siya gap, na siya kuwang, na baron. So diagnostic tell us what the student needs to learn. So there is a diagnostic tell us what the student needs to learn. So, makaibaw ta unsay kinahanglan or dapat pang makatunan sa usa ka estudyante. So, dili lang ako siya igdig deeper ang diagnostic kaya feel na ko na dyan ma-discuss ani pa. And then second, formative. So, it is formative. It allows the teacher to redirect and refocus the course of teaching a subject matter. So, tell us how well the student is doing as work progresses. So tell us how well the student is doing. So naunsa naman siya as she or he works as or kanang nag-progress pa iyang work baron. So that's formative. Third, summative. So determine the extent to which learning na guys objectives for a course are met and why. So it tells us how well the student did at the end of a unit task. So kabantay mo gaan tag summative to check. This is to tell the teacher how well the student did at the end of the unit. So nakatun ba siya or wala? Sana. Next, kay placement. So determining the appropriate area where the student could do well both in terms of achievement and aptitude. It tells us where a student would most likely excel. So like what everyone said, we have a lot of multiple intelligences. So in placement, pwede na to siya magamit or mahibawan nato kung asa most likely nag-excel si student. For example, di siya maayo sa academic but he excels in sports. Hinana gani. So we're able to replace or makabuhat og things that is applicable for them, not just kanang sa usa lang ka estudyante but sa uban pod, but it is a lot of works, no? So I think that the four functions of assessment, namely diagnostic, formative, summative, and placement. So that ends our report, guys. We are the group 1. My name is Joanna Bastas, together with Miss Alago Claire Ann Marie and Miss Cindy Rose Cabusa. Thank you for listening and God bless. Padayon.